philosophy as well. Anything that deals with like the human is particularly susceptible to
We'll say for social
human
science.
bias.
That might be why.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Then of the people in the fields, not optimal. We don't have to call it bad. Let's just say not the best.
So yeah, I'll just call it bad. Negative results. Lack of applications. Well, now let's think about things that we think are actually working properly. Okay, this is a discussion that I participated in, hosted by a guy named Jeff Anders, where we talked about, what did we talk about in that discussion? Oh, how to fix science, related to a video that posted just a while ago about the replicability issue with science, the fact that many studies can't be replicated. This conversation was sort of a listing of the problems with science in general, and Jeff proposed that many of them are the result of the fact that science funding went through the roof during the Cold War and just before the Cold War. And so a lot of PhDs were trained in a very short period of time, and there wasn't capacity to train them well, and so the science that's done now is the result of poorly trained scientists, a whole lot of them. And he posits that the best way to fix that is to completely reboot various different academic fields. Interesting theories, and he's started 2 organizations to make that happen. One is called Leverage Research Institute, and the other is called Paradigm Academy. They are interesting, and one of them was the sponsor of the EA Global Conference. Jeff has some interesting thoughts. I got to talk with him about education and so on, and yeah, okay, anyway, next event.
Agrees this is an important topic to work on, and there's much more clear research problems that scientists can start to tackle. Not quite focused on the kind of effective altruist project of problem selection, but are still doing very relevant work, and there's a list of them in this profile. Definitions already out there. About a factor of 3 more effective.
So this was a fantastic presentation by 80,000 Hours on what the most important crisis is, and how to think about prioritizing your work. And for the first time they presented this very quantitative way to analyze the way you feel about the world, to give you a surefire answer about what the most important problem based on your values is. So different people have different values in terms of like, oh, do you think current people that are alive are more worth saving than people who haven't been born yet, etc. Those are value calls. There's no like evidence-based way to answer those questions. It's just sort of how you feel as a human being and your experiences. So they let people make those judgment calls, and then based on the judgment calls that individuals make, they suggest, here's the most effective way you can spend your time and resources to make a difference for either people who are alive now, or say animals, or people who will live in the future, or other forms of intelligence that might exist in the future. Here are the different ways that you can make a difference in your life and make sure that life is better for other people, or for people who haven't even been born yet. So really, really fascinating. And it was great to see a framework that's technical and is useful for coming up with like hard and fast answers that answer otherwise mushy questions that people don't really know how to answer. So that's why I like 80,000 Hours. If you're interested in it, go to 80,000hours.org, no comma, just type it in, or click the link in the description. I would let you watch the next set of clips and then narrate that, but I think I'll just introduce it now. The next set of clips that you'll see before the end of the video, and I'll just let the video end after they're over, is a thing called a Hamming circle. Well, okay, there are a couple clips from like me at Walgreens. And then there's a thing called a Hamming circle, and a guy who Skyped in. Ignore that. So when you get to the people talking in a room, it was called a Hamming circle, and it's based on a guy named something Ham, who used to work at IBM and would always like inquire about people's fields and pursuits and ask them what the biggest problem in their field is, and then surprise them by asking them why they weren't working on that. So the idea of the Hamming circle is to get 4 people around you who want to learn what you're doing, what the biggest problem in your life is, and then ask you very frankly why you're not working on it. Oh, my computer just went to sleep. The lighting is better now. yeah, so really interesting thing. I got to sit with 5 people in a circle and talk for an hour and a half, about 20 minutes each, about what our different problems were, and sort of help each other solve our various different problems. It was really cool. It's like you have 5 human brains trying to solve a problem that you've been thinking on for a while. So, for example, mine was, do I devote all my resources to artificial intelligence, drop of a hat right now, and put all my existing projects on hold, or do I come up with a metric to determine when I should leave projects like Abroad Academy and Lander behind and move strictly to artificial intelligence as a field of interest, or a field that I can contribute to? Because I think that that's probably the most important long-term use of my time here, and I thought of a couple different ways to maybe make an impact there, but I've always put it off, and it's become very clear to me recently that AI may be a pressing issue sooner than I expected it to be. And so these are decisions that I need to make in shorter order than I expected to have to make them. So I no longer get to play around and build businesses. I have to make some interesting decisions. Those conversations at the Hamming Circle were very helpful for me to make those decisions. And it turns out that maybe I will work this year toward finding someone who wants to replace me at Abroad Academy and continue its mission, so that I can be freed up to go work on artificial intelligence related things. Those are my thoughts. Obviously, none of them are, plans in stone yet, but that's sort of why I was at this conference, and yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching. Enjoy these final clips.
For abused and neglected children in New York State, and you made me want to...
3.
I've met before. Bell Labs is very large. This is fairly easy to do. He would sit down at a table with someone he'd never met, and he would introduce himself, he would get them to introduce themselves, and he would start to ask them about their work, the things that they were working on, the things that they were excited about. What do you do here at Bell Labs? There are so many different fields. And he would get the people to talk about their current project. 30 minutes, when they really felt like they'd gotten to know each other and they were really comfortable, he would move the conversation just a little bit. So in your field of molecular biochemistry, what's like the biggest next huge question? Like the biggest open question, the biggest problem that everybody's trying to tackle, the one thing that like papers keep getting written about, and once you guys crack it, like your whole field is going to change. And of course, they would almost always be like, "Oh, that's," and they would start talking, "That's Steve's project. It's this thing we're like, and he would just kind of like, so, I mean, that sounds really cool. Why aren't you working on that? And this was the bombshell of the conversation. In this room, and it's nice if you can have like some semblance of privacy as you're bearing your soul to 3 people. It's easier to bear your soul to 3 people than to 15 people. So we have 1, 2, 3,